Good morning and welcome to today's Society of Light and Lighting webinar. We're joined by Chris Fordham and Luca Roncoroni, the Creative Director of ICEHOTEL. So before we get started, I just have a few housekeeping notes. So if you're having any connection issues, you may want to re-register and try logging back in. A recording of today's webinar will be shared tomorrow and it will also be added to the SL website. And during Luca's presentation, if you have any questions, please feel free to use the chat function and we'll try and address those after his presentation. So before I hand over to Chris, I'd just like to say a big thank you to Luca for joining us today and to Chris for joining us as well and letting us know and organising today's talk. And thank you to the Light Review as well. So let me hand over to you, Chris.
Thanks very much. Working as a special design correspondent for the Light Review means that I'm constantly on the lookout for design that doesn't follow the crowd. Ideally, something that contributes on an emotional level. So, with this in mind, I'm so grateful that Luca, thanks Luca, the creative director of the ICEHOTEL, who I first met on the Erasmus exchange program in Milan, which was amazing, not only agreed to be interviewed for the second time, but agreed this webinar, VSLL. I hope that everyone enjoys watching it as much as I did writing about it. So, over to you, Luca.
Jag är vatten, jag är is. Det är mitten av mars och jag har vuxit i ett halvt år. De kallar den här dagen för skördedagen och det är dagen då jag tillfälligt skiljs från mitt ursprung, den stora Torneälven. Det här är den första dagen i en lång process av hårt arbete. Inte för mig förstås, för allt jag kan göra det är att vänta. Tre månader senare har isen återgått till älvens virvlande strömmar. Fast det är klart, inte riktigt all is. "3000 ton av oss är fortfarande i fast form. Lånade från älven, stilla vilandes i kylan. Till slut faller snön utanför igen. Ett tecken på att vi snart ska byta form. De har gjort det här i 30 år nu och jag har varit med hela tiden. Jag har sett hur passion och kreativitet blivit till hänförelse och beundran år efter år. Den här gången har de sagt att jag ska bli någonting speciellt. Hur mycket jag än älskar min nya skepnad så vet jag mycket väl att ingenting varar för alltid. Om ett par månader kommer jag börja lösas upp igen och till slut återgå till älvens eviga flöde. För det här är min livscykel. Jag är is, jag är vatten.
Good day, everybody. I hope you can hear me clear. And this is the first time I'm having a webinar, so it'll be a bit strange not to see any of you, any of your faces. But I'll just start with a quick introduction about myself and how comes an Italian arrived to the ICEHOTEL in Sweden. Right now, I'm actually sitting in Drøbak, a small town just outside of Oslo, which is where I'm based. I've been living in Norway since 2001, and before that I was an exchange student in '95. That's when my kind of relationship with Scandinavia started. And during the exchange program, the Erasmus program, I participated in a land art seminar in the mountains in Norway, arranged by the art school. And that was my first meeting with ice and snow as building materials, or as a creative building materials, which was in '99. And then when I moved to Norway for good, I worked in an architect office. And while I was doing kind of conventional project, I also applied for the ICEHOTEL to go there as an apprentice. And I got there in 2001. And so it will be soon 20 years of history with me and the ICEHOTEL. And I first started as a builder, and then I went over to do my own project as a creative, as an artist or designer. And then the last 4 years, I had responsibility for all the artists, organizing their work and their stay at the ICEHOTEL. And then finally, last year, I took over as a creative director. So you could see that I kind of developed my relationship with the ICEHOTEL through 20 years, starting from the building side, and so learning all the basic about ice and snow as building materials, and then moved on and kind of connected those new skills with my background as an architect, educated in Milan, where I met Chris. The ICEHOTEL in Sweden. It's based in a small place called Jukkasjärvi. The closest town or city is in Kiruna, where you would fly if you would visit us. And it's about 200 km north of the Arctic Circle, which means that right now it's sun 24 hours a day, but it also means that between December and February, you don't see the sun. So that is the period when the ICEHOTEL, the original ICEHOTEL, is built. So that means that we work in the dark, you live in the dark, and you kind of really experience the Arctic landscape. And in this presentation, we'll talk about water, which is, of course, we use it in a frozen, in the frozen kind of state, but it's the water, like the circle of life related to water and to the Torne River. Those three images are right by the shore of the Torne River, the location where the ICEHOTEL is built, and basically what we consider the mother of all our projects. The ICEHOTEL, the ice bars, and all the projects that we do, all the ice we work with comes from this river. So it comes from one of the last wild rivers in Europe. Super clear water coming down from the mountains, and it brings all this kind of creative strength to the ICEHOTEL, and that is also actually why one of the reasons the ICEHOTEL is built in these specific locations, because of the quality of the water and consequently the quality of the ice that we can build with. But as I said, like we work there in wintertime. November and December are the building periods, and this is how we normally kind of see and know the river best. So when it's like frozen, closed up, locked up, and kind of covered in snow. This picture would be like in February, late February, when some of the light is coming back. And during winter time, we have the you know, even though it's the sun doesn't show, like you don't actually see the, you know, the sun across over to the horizon, but you still can experience what is called the Camel Slide, which is a Sami word, which directly translated means darkness, but it also means that you can experience the blue light or the blue hour, like we call it in Scandinavia, which means that for a few hours in winter, even though there is no actual sun, the sun is reflecting over the sky, and then you can see, if you look north, like right in this picture, you will see a blue light, and if you look south, you will see kind of an orange, pinkish light, which is the reflection from the sun. So even though it's dark, or it's dark like theoretically it's dark because you don't have the sun, you still have those amazing natural light. And this is one of them, the Camel Slide, which is maybe a little bit less known. And then we have, of course, the Northern Light, which is one of the reasons that a lot of people come up to this region to visit the region. So they come up to see the Northern Lights, and then the ICEHOTEL is also obviously a big attraction, and then there are the mountains, the nature, the wilderness. So there's also another. This is also another kind of example of how beautiful the dark winter months can be in the Arctic. And then of course you have some fun thing that you can do when you are like minus 35, minus 40, then you can actually throw up in the air a cup of hot water and see it like crystallize or become snow right over your head, so you don't get a single drop on your hand or get wet. So this is like a little bit kind of an introduction about the location and where the ICEHOTEL is, like in the world, in Europe. So it's pretty far north, and it's kind of a really wild place, and where you can really feel the power of nature, which then we try to kind of, I think we bring that into our kind of inspiration when we build the ICEHOTEL, and we work with light as well. So try to kind of pay a kind of an homage to the natural light that we experience on a daily basis in Jukkasjärvi. The story of the ICEHOTEL. So Yngve Bergqvist, this guy here in the top picture, is the founder of the ICEHOTEL. He's a Swedish from the south, actually not too far from Stockholm, so quite south in Sweden. And then in the 70s, he was an avid skier. He went up north to prolong his skiing season when the snow was melting in spring in the south of Sweden. But he also started to work in Kiruna. He moved to Kiruna, and he's an engineer, educated as an engineer, so he was working in a mine, which is a big reason of all the settlements being set up in this part of Sweden. And when he got there in the late 70s, he kind of saw there was this amazing river and this natural power in the river. So he decided that, okay, maybe we should do something like a creative tourist attraction. And that at that time was actually in the 80s, he was working in summertime and doing river rafting. And then once this business kind of, this passion of his kind of picked up and it became quite big, then he also thought, oh, why is there nothing between October and March? So maybe we should try to do something in wintertime. And even though everybody was kind of suggesting, oh no, it's not really worth it, like people are not coming up here when it's so cold, he started to do some research on his own. He actually went to Japan, to Sapporo in Hokkaido Island in the north of Japan in mid 80s, the second part of the 80s, to basically to do a research and see how they do the snow festival there, which was already kind of a big thing. So he learned, got some ideas, some inspiration, and he came back and he got together with those two other guys in the lower picture, which are Åke Larsson and Arne Berg. Åke was a carpenter, and he became the architect, the main architect behind the ICEHOTEL. And Arne Berg is an artist and sculptor, and he has been the creative director until last year when I took over. So those three guys were the kind of the core of the heart of the ICEHOTEL. And in 1889, they built what back then was actually an igloo, or a series of igloos, where they hung up kind of traditional art like paintings, or they had some traditional sculptures. And they found out that actually some of the tourists that were up there to look at or to search or to hunt for the Northern Lights, they actually enjoyed visiting this kind of art gallery in igloos. And some of them even asked if they could sleep there when there were no other accommodation options in town. So that's what actually the seed that was planted in their mind, and then they went over to build or started to build what we now know as the kind of the world first and original ICEHOTEL. So they started to actually do art and design and construct things more with ice and snow. They started to pick up ice from the river, to harvest ice from the river, and then basically they started to dream. And when you start to dream, then you can come up with, incredible projects like this one, which I think is still the best ever ice project. This is actually a boat that Arne and Åke are sitting in. They carved it out of one big block of ice, and they managed to have this fishing session for about 40-45 minutes on the Torne River. And every time I look at this picture, I kind of realize, how big of dreamers they were, and how kind of, they didn't really have any fear or any kind of limitation. They just thought, okay, let's find out what can we do with ice and snow. How can we bring this amazing material closer to creative expressions, and how can we bring together kind of natural material like this and art and design in a tiny little village like Jukkasjärvi. So after working and developing the first years, like building in late fall, building the ICEHOTEL, they realized that the fact that they had to wait until the river freezes or froze to have enough thickness of the ice to build something, it was quite a big limitation, because then you had to wait quite long into the winter, and you couldn't build too big stuff. So then they figure out, okay, maybe how can we get like bigger blocks or more material out of the river? And the solution was, again, to follow kind of the circle of the natural circle of the river. In March, April, in spring, the ice on the river can get up to a 1 meter thickness. So they decided to, why don't we harvest the ice in spring, and then we can store it somewhere, and then the following fall, the following autumn, then we can build our ICEHOTEL with these huge blocks that we get from the previous spring. So they put up first like a simple tent where they store the ice and cover it up, and then the simple tent evolved into what we have today, which is a production hall, which is control temperature, cool down, partially with solar panel and partially with green hydro electricity. And then they were able to start harvesting really big blocks. And here in the picture, you see the field, the harvesting field, right beside the site where the ICEHOTEL is built. So you can also see that this is absolutely a local material, or no, like a 0 kilometer material, because we pick it up, we harvest blocks about 50 to 70 meters from where the ICEHOTEL will be built, and about 100 meters from the freeze house where we store the ice. So the process of harvesting the ice is really fascinating, I think, and it's it starts by cleaning the ice. Throughout the winter, we need to keep the ice clean from snow so that the snow doesn't insulate, so that the ice can freeze thicker. And then when we get to March, April, we monitor the thickness of the ice throughout the winter. Then when we come to March, April, when the thickness is approximately 1 meter, then that allows us to on the one side to harvest a big block of ice, and on the other side also to get out on the ice, safely with machinery and equipment. And in the old days, you would cut the ice by hand like this. This is a picture from Canada, but it's to illustrate how in the old days you would cut the ice. But you can imagine that when you build an ice hotel like we do today, that is the ice hotel that is built about 5,000 square meters. If you want to cut all the ice, you need about like 4,000-5,000 tons by hand. It's quite a big daunting job. So now we went over to use or big machines like so we have loader, where we have custom-made hydraulic saw that is attached out of the arm of the loader, and then you can cut out really big blocks and in an efficient way. And every year we can harvest anything between 2,000 and 2,500 blocks that are about 2 cubic meters. So they're like like a bigger, almost like a double bed. Where you would sleep in your home. These like big ice blocks. And I thought I will show you now a little bit of how this hydraulic saw could work. This is from Canada, where I do other projects in winter, but it's a good footage to show you how a saw can work. Like the one that we use at the ice hotel is even bigger. So like there is a bigger loader. In this case, we have a bobcat and a bigger saw. But you see, it's a really cool process to see. And here again, just to show you how we can pick up big ice blocks from the river. So it's I think it's always super fascinating to see this process and to see how big of the blocks we can get out of the rivers, either in Canada or in Jukkasjärvi. This is from, sorry, let me go back. This is from Jukkasjärvi. So this is actually in March, April, where we pick up those huge blocks, lift them out from the river, from the water, and then we'll store them temporarily on the shore. We clean away the white ice that is on top, which is mostly like a kind of a frozen snow. So we top it off, like we shave off the first slice kind of off the top of the ice, so that we have super clean ice, completely transparent. You can actually, from a block like this that is 1 meter by 2 meter by maybe 1 meter or 90 centimeter, you can actually read a newspaper. So that clear, is super nice ice. Once that's done on the river, then we transport it with another loader. We transported those 100 meters to the freeze house or to the production hall, and then we store it. We store, at any given time during the year, we have anywhere between 2,500 and 3,000 of those blocks, and you can see a little bit of the size here. This is just like a small section of our kind of storage facility and production facility. Which means that again, like the following autumn, we can start building an ice hotel virtually without any constriction about what can we do, or what kind of size of the sculpture or columns or construction elements we want to do. But it also means that we can do projects, art project, design project, or events all year round. So if we could build. That's why we can build ice bars around the world. Or that's why we could do ice sculpture next week, like in July, in the middle of July, we could come to London and put up a sculpture or a pop-up bar or whatever project might be in the middle of London next week, using these ice from Sweden, natural ice, and those really big clear ice blocks. We also make or cast snow blocks, so that in the production hall we do have those several thousand ice blocks, but we also have anywhere between 200 and 400 snow blocks, almost like big Lego blocks, which allow us again to do different projects throughout the year, also with snow. We always use, we'll get deeper into this later, but we always use both ice and snow. And that also, on the one hand, because they have different properties, on the other hand, because they work differently with when lit, like with lighting. And also they have like a different character. So like the ice is obviously transparent and kind of bluish or blue tones. The snow is, as everybody know, white, very white and crispy surface. So the contrast between those two materials is always really, really nice to work with. So after we have cut and we have these ice blocks harvested from the river and we have in the production hall, then we can actually continue like with the next step of the production, which means that we can, you know, it's basically like any kind of a building process. You get you know what you want to build, you make a plan, what kind of material you need to realize your project, and then you make an order list and you cut the ice into the sizes that you might need for any project at any given time, and then you pack them up on pallets and you store them in another area of the production facility, so that when the time comes that you are building your room, your church, or your hotel, then you can just go and pick up the pallet with the ice according to the order, and you can follow a building process that is like efficient and rational. So here you see how we can cut the ice. So we have again like I would say state-of-the-art facility where we can cut ice in any size the artist or the designer might need to realize their work. We can do it in a safe way, in an efficient way, and it's much more kind of safer and kind of in a way easier job. If you see the lower pictures, like on the left is like a little bit of more of a old style outdoor with a chainsaw and like cutting in any kind of weather. And on the right bottom picture, then you see today's facility where you can actually control the saw from a distance. So there is like a much better working environment, safer working environment, and we can still do like we can do a really efficient and good job in preparing that. And then at the production facility, we also have a computer control CNC machine, so we could do text, graphic, or sculpture, and so that means that we can do, again, we can enlarge our kind of reach or our potential to do different projects. And like in this case where you're like in text, like in graphics, and the machine is milling, and then by hand the guys are like polishing the surface of the ice so that it's clear and really nicely done. The ICEHOTEL team is actually a pretty big team. So we have like about 70-person building, like on the actual building side of the ICEHOTEL, but then we also have about top, when we have the top season, like the winter season, then we can be up to 200, including guides, restaurant people, hotel staff, reception and whatnot. So it's always like a really big team effort. And these 70-person that every year build the ICEHOTEL are divided basically in three or four main groups. So like we have every year about 35 to 40 artists that are coming from all over the world. They're picked by a jury. Every year we have about 150 applications, and we build between 15 and 20 projects every year. And when I say project, that means suite, like a room, hotel room where people sleep in, but we also have the main hall, we have the ceremony hall, we have the ice bar. So it's a really kind of a big international group of people. And this year was actually, due to the pandemic, is actually the first year we couldn't have an international competition because of the obvious travel limitations. So this coming winter, we'll still have the ICEHOTEL as you know it, but it will be built only exclusively by Swedish artists and designers, and that's because it kind of makes the the logistic in this special period more kind of like easier to handle. So, and those 35 artists, 40 artists come every year. It's we have as a kind of a policy or as a kind of vision at the ICEHOTEL that 30% of those must be what we call rookies. So new artists, so like no experience, never been at the ICEHOTEL before. Some of them have never worked with ice and snow before. They are like, might be like, super experienced sculptors or designers or architects, but they never worked with ice and snow. That's why we have a support team that is between like 5 or 6 people that have like at least 15 years of experience working with ice and snow in different projects and different kind of capacity. And this team is set up to support all the artists, all 35, 40 of them, but specifically those new ones, so that we can actually have people that are come there with a completely open mind. They don't have any kind of a fixed kind of knowledge, if you want, about snow and ice, which means that then they can bring some crazy ideas that can challenge us all every year, and that can push us to do something different every year. We don't want to kind of stagnate and kind of do the same stuff over and over again. So that's one of the reasons we want to have people that do not have experience. That is also why we never have a theme. So the artists are completely free to do what they want. So we never kind of guide them down kind of this or that road. They are completely free to decide what to do. And obviously the jury picks their concept based on a multitude of aspects. One of it is to show different kind of styles, different kind of creative approaches. We also want to have like a very international field, so we pick people from different part of the world so they can come with a different backgrounds, and then they come there, they build their own rooms themselves. So this is also a quite special process. If you're a designer or an architect, very often you kind of you develop a concept, you make the drawings, and then you hand it over to somebody that is building for you, basically. In this case, you would come there and build your room by yourself. And then you have, as I said, like the support team is helping you to do the practical stuff, but then we also have a lighting team. So it's anywhere between 7 and 9 person. Most of them have a long experience with the ice, working with ice and snow, lighting ice and snow. That's kind of a very kind of small field within lighting design, and they start to work with the artist at a very early stage, so that they kind of try to find the best solution to bring the artist's vision into reality, basically, to build how can we shape together your vision, including light, which we'll see is a really, really important part of the ICEHOTEL. So all this process, this planning process, starts already in summer. That's one of my biggest tasks. Could get down to the very small details with all the artists, prepare all the drawings during the summer, the ice orders, how can we build this and that, do we need special molding shapes, how do we build this wall, or how do we do this sculpture, how do we light this, how do you light your room, like how is the lighting going to be working, like what kind of feel you want to give to the room. So all this process is done. Basically, I'm in the middle of it right now, and we work with the artist, and then as soon as the weather kind of gets in a way on our side, which means as soon as we get -degrees, and normally end of October, beginning of November, we start to produce snow. So we would pump up water from the river, and we have 3-4 snow cannons, and we basically produce snow because we need much more snow than what we would get from nature. So we have to produce snow ourselves. But also that gives us the possibility to produce a snow that is good for building, which is, it needs to have like a good humidity kind of content. If it's too wet, then it gets gray and icy, doesn't look good, and it's difficult to work with. If it's too dry, then it doesn't hold together. It's not like sticky enough in a way, like the way we ideally we would like the snow that is really good to make snowball. So if you have, if you made snowball before, then you know that you kind of, if it's too dry, it doesn't stick, you don't get any ball. If it's too wet, it just get hard and icy. So we try to control the snow quality, and then we use the forms. Like those are kind of if you want, the DNA of the ICEHOTEL. So those are forms that have been designed and developed at the ICEHOTEL throughout the years, and those are forms that are like are put up in order to build the ICEHOTEL. And what happens is that we put up a line or several lines of those metal forms that are on skis, and they are locked together. So we make a big line like in those pictures. And then we place ice blocks, like we make a frame for each door that we're gonna have in the hotel, so it gives strength. So it's kind of a ice reinforcement, if you will. And then once all this is in place, then big loader will come with snow, and we'll start to cast, like basically to spray snow around and over those metal forms that are put down on the line. And this is a process that takes time, and then you have both like machine work, but you also have a lot of hand work. Like these guys are and girls are on the roof of the ICEHOTEL. The big blower blows the snow over the forms, the casting forms, and then those guys go around by hand and kind of spread, do kind of the fine work and spread the snow around the forms, so that we get like a nice even distribution of the weight of the snow. And this is obviously, very hard work, and in kind of severe conditions. Sometimes we can have like 35, 40 below. We can have winds. It's right by the river, so it's kind of a demanding job. Once the forms have been setting for a couple of days, let's say between 24 and 48 hours, depending on the weather, then the forms are pulled out by a big loader. The forms, as I said, they are sitting on skis, so they can slide easily. So they're pulled out, and the result is the basic of the row building of the ICEHOTEL is a series of tunnels like this one. And we have, a lot of tunnels of different sizes, a small one for the corridors and bigger one for the rooms, and even bigger for the main hall. And once you have all those, series of corridors or tunnels, then we go in with these wooden casting forms, and we build up dividing walls. So basically, first you have the long tunnel, then you build up walls so that you create several rooms within the long tunnels. And then the smaller tunnel on the side will function as a corridor. So then you will have access to all those rooms. So this is the basic kind of construction concept of the ICEHOTEL, and it's very efficient. So the shape of the iconic shape of the ICEHOTEL is also very strong, because of all the weight kind of gets kind of transported down on the side, where the walls are very thick, up to 1.5 meters. And then during the season, the roof will sink a little bit, but it will never really collapse. So it's a very safe construction and strong construction of compacted snow. By the time we're done with a row building, then we're maybe like in the middle of November or third week of November, and that's when we start, where like the artists are just coming up or soon arriving to Jukkasjärvi. So we have more planning to do, and we make drawings, and we know exactly where to place all the material that the artists will need to do their jobs. So we'll start putting ice and snow blocks in the room, and that's also something we need to be very careful with and very kind of precise in the placing of the ice, because when you move a block like this of ice that is about 1.5 ton and you place it with a tractor, and then the artist comes and says, oh, it should have been 30 centimeters to the right or to the left, then you have a problem. Then it's not so easy to move it, because then you can't get into the room with a tractor anymore. So placing the blocks, ice or snow, it's really like it's really an important part of our job, preparing for the artist to come. So we'll do this kind of in a way behind the scene job before the artists come, and we prepare all the ice they might need or they will need outside of each corridor on the palette that we prepared before. And then when the artists come, we go even more into detail and figure out, how we need to adjust things. How can we work to make, how do we get light cables there, or how do we sculpt this furniture or this wall? And then the artists get to work. They are there for 2 weeks, and they work like crazy 7 days a week. It's a lot of hard work, very physical, but at the same time it's also kind of demanding and a kind of mentally, because we always need to adjust our plan. Like, again, we're working with a natural material which changes. So depending on the temperature, the ice and the snow change like several times a day. It could be more humid, it could be colder, it could be windy. So you kind of always have to adjust a little bit your plan. You can't just follow, blindly your plan and say, okay, this is what's on paper. It doesn't work like that when you work with ice and snow. So you kind of have to have a certain flexibility, and the artists need to kind of, they learn it very quick, even the new ones. And while the artists work in their room, then the building team continue working on more of the row building. So in these pictures, I want to show you kind of during work and after work. So this is a corridor of the ICEHOTEL, and you have like a lot of people working there to smoothen the walls, clean up all the ice, put up the light, and all the doors and whatnot. And then you have the end product of the row building, like in this case where we put up the iconic chandelier of the ICEHOTEL. And once you have the row building, then the artists can come in and start building their project or their room. But also the builders will do the main rooms, like in this case, is putting up the columns for the main hall, and preparing like all the kind of, if you will, like the common areas. So it's a lot of work that is going on while the artists are doing their project, their art. The builders are still constructing the ICEHOTEL like next door, like on the opposite side of a snow wall or an ice wall. And so there is always a lot of activity. Those 2 weeks they're super hectic, and there are people working like high up or digging or laying down to sculpt something. And then again, like there is always a kind of a combination, try to find a balance between detail work and big construction work. And that's also when the artists with a lot of experience can come in and guide the new artists. And sometimes you have some hookups, like if it's too cold, the ice doesn't really like to be moved or sculpted or cut. So even the ice, like, ideally we would like to work at -10. In this picture, I think it was something like 32 or 34 below, and the ice gets so brittle. There is so much tension in the ice that as soon as you try to move it or to cut it, it can break. So we have to kind of, again, like be flexible and deal with that and work with the weather we have, especially when we're working outdoors in a building, like in this case, a tower or structure. So it's kind of demanding work, but sometimes we also have some fun to play in the snow with the kids of some of the artists that are coming all the way from Japan and bringing their kids and work with them. And then another point, like once we come like maybe 10 days into the building work, then the lighting team comes into the rooms, and they need to try to, they have planned with the artists during the summer how to realize their vision. but there is a lot of practical stuff that they need to figure out right then and there on site. They need to build custom lamps because it's not really, you can't really buy kind of off-the-shelf stuff. There is a lot of cabling to be done in the snow walls, on the roof, a lot of stuff to be fixed, and then go all the way to details and to installing the lighting, which is a huge part of the work at the ICEHOTEL. It's really like it can make or kind of kill project, and that is why we're very kind of dependent on the experience of those light designers that we have. In this case, you see one of the chandelier. At the ICEHOTEL, we have then 2 ICEHOTELs, like the ICEHOTEL Winter, which is the one that melts, the original one. And then in 2016, we opened also ICEHOTEL 365, which is open all year round. And you can visit at any time. It's a controlled temperature building, also powered by solar power and green hydroelectricity. So in wintertime, you would go there and experience both, but in summertime you can still experience ICEHOTEL 365. And I will kind of take you through now some example of rooms that we have done through the years to show you a little bit, both a little bit of the kind of the development of the ICEHOTEL in the last, the pictures are for the last 15 years, but also to show you a little bit how much light can have an impact. Most of you, or probably all of you, are very used to work with light, so you definitely know much more than me when it comes to technical stuff and kind of rules or experiences that you can shape with light. And the ICEHOTEL is even more true because you can work with, you have the two different materials, snow and ice, that give so much they have so much difference in their kind of nature. But it's also like you can work, of course, with filters. We don't allow people to add colors to ice and snow, so the artist cannot use like pigment to color snow or ice. But we do allow the use of filters in light. So that's again when lighting comes into play, and it kind of allows you to create amazing atmospheres and to shape very different rooms and experiences. And you can do, like in the picture on the left here, you can actually do lighting fixture out of the snow and ice and insert LED or optic fiber. You can do projection on the snow to kind of simulate or kind of recall northern lights. You can work exclusively with snow, so just like white canvas, and the light is the most important element to create depth in the room, or to highlight, to create shadow. It's just like you see in all those rooms, light is basically one of the biggest contributing factors of shaping those amazing experiences at the ICEHOTEL. And it's also very nice. That's also very nice for all of us involved to work with people with so many different backgrounds. Like you have like light designer, you have architect, designer, product designer, you have sculptors. They all come in with their background and with their ideas, so that you can really kind of push the limit every time, and you can develop and grow together, and then you can exchange so much. So all these, like they were seeing now, is just to show you how much of a different kind of palette that you can work with. And sometimes sometimes we do like exception, like the room on the right that is called Golden Ice was from last winter. It was ICEHOTEL 30th anniversary, and this was the first time in 30 years of ICEHOTEL history that we actually allowed a foreign material. So behind this ice, or within these ice glasses, it was kind of a sandwich construction of these ice walls, which included a kind of a space blanket, the one you use like in the mountains for rescue, for safety rescue. And it was like a kind of it made sense to make an exception for that very important year when we celebrate 30 years, and it's kind of a golden kind of a milestone for us. So the French artist kind of did a really good job introducing a foreign material for the first and probably only time. Then, as I mentioned, we have this ICEHOTEL 365 that you can visit all year round. And once you get through this door, then you will get into a winter space, winter landscape at -5, which is the temperature we'll always have in all the naturally in the winter ICEHOTEL. So we recreate that, so you can step in and experience a little bit of winter all year round. And there you can, visit the ice bar or visit and sleep in ice and snow rooms, very much like the winter hotel. But in this way, we kind of our goal is kind of to reach out to a bigger audience, and so give the possibility to more people to experience ice and snow in a creative way. Now I want to show you some of the kind of iconic projects that we have. I would say that some of the icons for the ICEHOTEL are, of course, the entrance door with the reindeer skins and the kind of the ICEHOTEL arch, the chandelier, and then we also have this very special room, the ceremony hall, where a lot of people get married. Like in the last few years, we had about 120, 140 weddings every winter. And this is a project from last year, the ceremony hall from last year. And I want to show you some pictures to show how, again, like how kind of strong rooms you can build in ice and snow, and how important lighting is. Again, here you have details of ice and snow, and you have like there are designers here, Nina and Johan Kauppi. They've been working a lot with transparencies and with contrast between snow and ice, and they've been working with the combination between hand, like sculpted elements, but also CNC milled patterns, like the ginkgo flowers, or on the back of the wall, this kind of a more graphic pattern. So all this is done with a CNC machine, and then is mounted on place to achieve this kind of a really, really beautiful space where people really like to get married into. Then we also had ICEHOTEL also had started this in 2002, the ice bars around the world. The first one was in Stockholm, and the ice bar again was a little bit of a different concept because it's bringing the ice experience to where people are. Like obviously we do have ice bars in Jukkasjärvi, so at the ICEHOTEL, like those ones, different, there we can test different designs, different construction methods, but then we bring also the ice in different cities where we have permanent ice bars, and where people can go and you kind of have a little bit of a kind of test of the feeling of being in an ice cold room. And so we built ice bars all over the world, from Stockholm to London to Shanghai to Milan. Again, working with different artists, different designers, sculpting by hand or using kind of a little bit more modern technology. And again, lighting is incredibly important factor to achieve those results, and to achieve kind of to be able to manage this, construct these experiences. Then one thing that is really beautiful, I think, at the end of the year, at the end of the spring, is the melting process of the ICEHOTEL. In those next pictures, you see there is no kind of artificial light or man-made light, but you see how natural light can really make beautiful kind of installation or new art pieces of what we have done, like what we have built early in the winter. So the natural process of the main hall melting, getting flooded by water, the columns, ice columns still standing, or the ceiling of the rooms coming down and deforming but still not collapsing, pushing down some sculptures, or even kind of opening up and showing kind of the blue sky, and still have some sculptures and some decoration being there, or some ice wall being kind of enlightened from within and behind. It's just like it's amazing. As it was amazing to work for like two winters, 2003, 2004, we made a replica of the Shakespeare Ice Globe Theatre. And I thought to show you a couple of pictures of this, most of you being from the UK. there was only Shakespeare played in the theater, but it was played by a Sami ensemble of like a theater ensemble with Sami. So it was all played in the Sami language, which is, you know, it was really nice kind of a bridge or connection between Shakespeare and the local community. And then ICEHOTEL has also been doing a lot of fashion collaborations, like this one with Chanel, when Lagerfeld and Chanel come to the ICEHOTEL and they said, well, we want to do something in Grand Palais in the middle of Paris. We have like a fall winter collection to present, and we want you to build a huge iceberg in the Grand Palais in the middle of Paris. So every 2 hours we had a delivery, track delivery from Sweden with big snow blocks. There were 27 artists working in 3 teams so that we could work 24/7 for 2 weeks. And we built all down to detail a huge iceberg, which then was used for a 45 minutes fashion show for Chanel, where several thousand people were attending. I think there were 1,500 photographers plus all the kind of invited guests. And it was just an amazing project to be a part of, like in the middle of Paris, building a huge iceberg. And then we also had on-site, like coming to Jukkasjärvi, different fashion company, and we had also some really kind of iconic project like this one for Versace and Absolute, with some big fashion star coming and you know, visiting us. And then I'd like to close to finish the presentation with a pretty different project that I did in Canada in 2017, and it was a collaboration with Anish Kapoor. I'm sure all of you know about. And again, this is a short 1-minute video to show a little bit the process to build, and it's also a project where light and how light infuses a space, build of ice, how natural light is kind of influencing the space, and that was Kapoor's main kind of vision or inspiration for the project. So here we go with 1 minute of Kapoor project Stackhouse. So that's
wonderful. Thank you very much. I think everyone will agree that was a really fascinating presentation to see the whole process and the scale of it as well. It's incredible. Yeah. Also the finished images there of the different suites and halls. It's really, really beautiful. So we do have some questions through, so I'll open those up. I think I'm going to start with this one, which we just received. So after all these years, all your experience, what do you A, enjoy the most, and B, what challenges you the most?
What I enjoy the most is that I get to not only kind of design things, but also build things. So actually, you know, do a practical job. And what I kind of, the second part of it, what challenges me the most, which is also one of the things that makes me love this job even more, is that ice and snow are never the same. Like as I said, like every day the material can change several times. So what is challenging, but at the same time really nice, is that we don't really have the power over the material like we normally have in a, in a normal building. I'm an architect, so in a normal building site, you would be kind of controlling everything down to the millimeters, and you would want to know exactly, what happens with this concrete or this wood or this metal stuff. With ice and snow, is the other way around. Like the material has kind of a more power than in a way than designer or the architect in a way. So I like the fact that I like the challenge that the material is kind of a little bit kind of taking over the designer, and that forces you to be flexible and to kind of find a little bit of adjustment or solution on the go. So I think that's very, very nice.
I imagine that takes a very kind of certain temperament, really, to be able to handle that challenge and kind of how dynamic it is. So I'm not sure everyone would have the sort of mental agility.
That's why it's really nice when you come at the ICEHOTEL, and maybe, obviously the first times or the very first time you're there, it's not so easy to be flexible and kind of change your plan. But that's why we kind of we have the support team. That's why we have a support of like a team of people with a lot of years of experience, and that's why we think it's a good idea to combine very experienced artists and designers with new ones, because then they can exchange, they can talk, and they can learn in a more kind of a organic way, and they can also get more of a mental support, because sometimes sometimes it is tough when you cannot follow your plan and you think, okay, I'm never going to make this design, or it's never going to happen the way I thought it. So it's that's why it's also the personal aspects becomes very very important. And working at the ICEHOTEL, it's a little bit like being back at school in a way, where you live kind of together, you work together. It's like doing a big workshop at school, or like when Chris and I were exchange student together, or he was exchange student in Milan, and you really live together with each other, and it kind of gives you a lot of strength, and it helps a lot when you need to be flexible and you don't really know how to handle the situation.
Of course, yeah. I suppose the communication side of it is really important. It must be such an incredible learning experience for the people that are new to it. So we have another question here. So do you ever use computer simulation during design stage? And if so, what are the challenges of simulating ice?
I wouldn't say like simulation in the sense that maybe you would use, kind of more simulation for, how a traditional conventional building would work or react to certain circumstances. But we definitely use we use 3D or like digital tools and 3D drawings to plan the hotel, both on the building side to kind of have a bit of a control about how much material we need, for example, how much of the volume of snow we need to build to do this casting or that casting. So that's the one side. And on the other side, with the artists, more and more artists and designers, when they submit their concept, they do use 3D programs. So they would send a 3D model, and then we can use that. I can use that to when we have to convert kind of the concept into reality and to make an ice order list, and we need to figure out how to get the most of the ice out of the block, for example. Then it's really cool to have a 3D drawing so you can check all the volumes. So we'll definitely use more and more of those tools, which also can help us plan the lighting, because then we could do a little bit of testing in the 3D model, how lighting can work, even though there is always a kind of a certain kind of level of again, flexibility and kind of improvising on site. But definitely 3D tools are becoming more and more important. And also, if we want to use a CNC machine, it's computer control. So if you want to do graphic and do the milling or do sculptures, so then we definitely need to use those digital tools.
Yeah, thank you. So someone has asked, with an increase in global temperature, has this affected your ability to harvest the ice at all?
The harvesting has not been affected that much, because by March and April the ice is still kind of growing. Of course, we have like every year, you know, any year we might have a bit of a different quality of the ice. This year, for example, is a little bit thinner than last year. So the harvesting is not that affected, but what we definitely feel the difference is for the building period. And that's because the ICEHOTEL always opens in the middle of December when there is a Lucia Day, which is a very important kind of celebration in Sweden. There is the 13th of December. So that's kind of that weekend close to the 13th of December is the opening day. And then we start to build as soon as it's cold enough. But that changes, you know. So the starting of the building changes, but the end of the building, when we open the ICEHOTEL, is the same. So obviously, if the start of the building moves forward because it's too warm, then we have less time to build. So for example, last year, normally we build for about 6 weeks. Last year we lost 9 or 10 days due to warm weather. And you can imagine that, you know, out of 6 weeks, you take away 10 days, it's a big chunk of your kind of working period that is gone. So definitely we feel the changes during the building season in like mid-November and December. November and December so this winter was really good. We could produce now already at the end of October, so we had a really good building season. Last year was one of the 2 worst seasons since we started 30 years ago. So definitely we have some challenges, and what we feel the most is that it's probably big variation. So when I started 20 years ago, it was kind of stable cold throughout, you know, October to January. Now we can have like big kind of spikes both up and down. So we could have like one day we could have -35, 24 hours later we could have +4. So this is really challenging when you don't have that kind of a stable, kind of more stable weather. So yeah, we definitely feel that it's you know, it's a little bit different, but again, then experience and kind of knowledge comes into play, and kind of how so far we've managed to open the ICEHOTEL every year. So hopefully we'll still continue to do that.
Yeah, absolutely. Fingers crossed. I guess as you were showing sort of throughout the process there, it is such a tight time scale when things are coming together. So I can imagine, yeah, that kind of having it knocked off by 10 days is big.
Yeah.
We have time for one more question, and there are 2 here which are quite similar. So it's in relation to the temperature and sort of light output and performance. So do you limit the power of LED, or can you use considering heat, etc., or do you design the space to accommodate the fitting and a required power? So I guess it's, yeah, go ahead.
So for anything that the artists do, like both from the concept of the room, but also the lighting concept, we don't have a specific kind of set of rules or requirements. So basically, when you come up with an idea and the jury picks your idea, then we are starting the process together to figure out how can we build it. So we don't put any kind of frames beforehand. When the lighting team starts to work with the designers, then they obviously we have a certain kind of equipment, and then we can implement it and buy some more stuff every year, depending on the needs. But definitely in the last years we have gone over to LED lighting. Very often they are low power. So I think I wrote down something here from the lighting guys, because that's the technical part is not my best one. So they use between 1 and 3, the range of 1 and 3 watts, and then 7,000 Kelvin, 6,000 Kelvin is kind of a average light kind of source type that we use. But we also use optic fiber. We use projectors. Obviously, we try to keep down the how much heat the light sources give. So in certain cases, for example, if you have a projector for the box, the kind of controlling the optic fiber, we place that on the roof in insulated box outdoors, so we don't bring heat inside the rooms. And then we run all the cables in the walls, in the snow walls, like you would do in a normal wall at home. so definitely we were like, you know, we think a lot about like temperature, how much heat the light sources give, but definitely now with a LED, like newer LED and kind of lower warmth output sources, we managed to keep that pretty well under control. And then all the kind of installation, the fixture that we use, they're pretty much everything kind of custom made. So we build, you know, maybe you buy like a kind of spotlight off the shelf, but then the guys and girls, they build all the kind of shields and boxes and installation kind of brackets and all that. It's all built on site, custom made for that specific project. So, you know, maybe the actual light source is the same every year, but it's all like installed and mounted and fixed in the ice, under the ice, over the ice, or in the snow in different ways every time in order to achieve the kind of the, you know, the goal or the vision of the artists.
Wow, that's really fascinating. Thank you. Okay, so that just leaves it to me to close off. I'd like to say a huge thank you to you, Luca, and to ICEHOTEL for your time, and thank you very much to Chris for organising this as well, and to the light review. Yeah, thanks to Chris for bringing me in, and thanks to you guys for giving me the chance to show you the ICEHOTEL. And just remember that every May we have a deadline for the concept coming in. So maybe some of you listening and watching now will want to send a concept for next year. So maybe we'll see you in Jukkasjärvi building the next ICEHOTEL. That would be fantastic, and we will include links to the ICEHOTEL, to Luca's work as well, and to the light review in the follow-up email too. Good. Brilliant. Okay, thank you very much. Thanks everybody. Take care.